Thrown into a slave colony, humans don't just survive. They organize, weaponize, and lead hundreds of species into rebellion, with memes and guerrilla warfare. The prison moon of Gorik 7 never knew the warmth of sunlight. Orbiting a cold gas giant with swirling green storms, it was a forgotten rock in the corner of the Zeltrax sector. But it had value, not for beauty or culture, but for its rich veins of arcanite, a mineral so potent it powered entire star fleets. To the Altari Dominion, the ruling alien empire, Gorik 7 was a vital resource. To humans, it was hell. When Earth fell 50 years ago, the skies had been torn apart by orbital strikes. The Altari came not with diplomacy but with culling ships. Cities crumbled under plasma bombardments. Survivors were rounded up, tagged, and taken away in massive transporters. Only a few humans remained on Earth, feral, hiding, nearly extinct. The rest were scattered across the stars in bondage. Aboard prison convoy T-99, a young man named Reyes sat shackled in a narrow metal seat, the roar of the engines vibrating through his bones. He had been born in captivity like most others here. His mother, long dead, had told him stories of Earth. Blue skies, oceans, trees that reached toward the sun. Reyes had never seen such things. He only knew stone corridors, electric fences, and the heavy silence of defeat. Gorik 7 was his destination. The prisoners were processed with brutal efficiency. Implants were inserted at the base of their necks, pain inhibitors, obedience circuits, surveillance nodes. The Altari were masters of control. They spoke rarely, using guttural clicks and high-frequency signals exchanged through their semi-transparent throat sacs. To humans, they were towering insectal horrors. Four-legged, with glassy black eyes and armored carapaces that shimmered in the moonlight. Reyes and the others were assigned to Mine Sector 12, the lowest and most dangerous of all. Days bled into each other, marked only by blaring horns and protein-paced meals. The air was thick with arcanite dust, and most workers didn't last more than 6 months before collapsing from internal decay. Reyes survived 3 years. Something in him refused to break. Maybe it was the stories his mother whispered before the guards dragged her away. Maybe it was the rage he carried in his blood. He watched. He learned. He waited. Then came Unit 547. She called herself Mara. Unlike the others, she had been captured during the final resistance on Mars. She was older, stronger, and not afraid to speak. Most whispered her name when guards weren't around. She had a scar across her forehead, a jagged line that started just above her left eyebrow and curved toward her temple. It wasn't from battle. It was from a failed implant surgery. The Dominion had tried to overwrite her free will and failed. Something in her brain rejected the signal, burned it out. And now she was dangerous. Reyes met her on his 3rd rotation. He was carrying a faulty drill pack when it sparked and exploded, knocking him against the rock wall. Mara pulled him out of the debris before the foreman drones could zap him. She dragged him to a hidden alcove, patched his shoulder, and said only one thing. "You want to die like a slave or fight like a human?" Reyes didn't hesitate. Fight. That was how it began. Mara introduced him to the others, a scattered network of prisoners who had hacked their implants using makeshift frequency jammers. They called themselves the Fractured. Each had a role: smuggling tools, creating distractions, communicating between sectors. They had no weapons. They had no maps. All they had was determination and a plan. The first act of defiance came subtly. A supply drone was diverted and crashed into a storage chamber. Sabotage, the guards thought. Malfunction, said the AI overseer. The Fractured said nothing. Then a tunnel collapsed unexpectedly, sealing off 24 guards. Then the communication tower suffered a data surge, erasing surveillance logs from multiple sectors. The Altari began to suspect, But they underestimated the humans. In their arrogance, they viewed Earthlings as lesser beings, biological machines good only for labor. They didn't realize that desperation breeds ingenuity, that oppression breeds rebellion. Took months, but Mara's network grew. Reyes became her second, specializing in sabotage and infiltration. He was quiet, calculating, and ruthless when needed. Together, they planned something unprecedented: to disable the gravity core of Gorik 7, effectively ripping it from orbit and initiating a moonquake large enough to destroy the mining sectors. It was suicide, and yet, better to die free than live as a drone. The day came like any other. Gray skies, blaring horns, Arcanite drills screaming. But beneath the surface, the fractured moved. They were 600 strong now. Not an army, but enough. Reyes led the infiltration into the central shaft. With him were 2 technicians, a medic, and a boy barely 16. The corridors were lined with shimmering purple veins of Arcanite. At the heart of the mine sat the gravity core, a glowing sphere suspended in magnetic stasis, guarded by 2 Eltari commanders and 4 turret drones. The fight was brutal. The humans came with jury-rigged explosives, sharpened tools, and stolen shock rods. They lost 3 people before Reyes reached the control console. He jammed the main capacitor using a reinforced mining spike, then activated a timed overload. Across the mine, systems failed. Lights dimmed. Gravity began to warp. Above, Mara led the assault on the command center. She climbed the vertical shafts like a shadow, taking out guards one by one. She reached the Overseer's chamber, a massive sphere hovering on stabilizers, pulsing with data tendrils. The Eltari AI tried to stop her with psychic pulses, but Mara's broken implant shielded her. She reached the core module and drove a stolen plasma blade through its heart. And Gorik 7 screamed. The moon convulsed. Quakes tore through mining shafts. Support beams snapped. The sky darkened as the gas giant's magnetic storms pulled at the moon's crust. Escape ships launched, only the Eltari were allowed to board. The humans were left to die. But Reyes and Mara had planned for that. In the deep underground, they had excavated a hidden launch hangar, an old research facility abandoned by the Eltari decades ago. Inside, they found a freighter barely functional, missing weapons but flyable. It was called the Aegis. 300 humans made it aboard. The rest were either dead, dying, or fighting to their last breath on the collapsing moon. The Aegis launched into the storm, dodging debris and electrical surges. Reyes piloted, hands slick with sweat, eyes focused. Mara stood behind him, bleeding from her side, but smiling. "Where to?" he asked. "Earth," she said. "It's time we go home." But Earth was not ready. They arrived months later to a desolate wasteland. The Dominion had stripped the planet bare, mining its oceans, poisoning its atmosphere. Still, ruins of cities remained, and beneath them, the whispers of survivors. Mara and Reyes didn't mourn, they rebuilt. The Aegis became their new capital, the humans aboard its first citizens. Word spread. Other prison moons heard the call. Messages were smuggled through data pulses, encoded in mining reports. The humans had rebelled. Gorik 7 was gone. A freighter had escaped. The revolution had begun. The Dominion responded with fire. They sent warships to chase down rebel cells. They bombed liberated mines. They executed suspected traitors. But each act of brutality only fueled the fire. The fractured became a movement. It reached the prison camps of Vos Prime, the factories of Zenthra 9, the orbital docks of Merak Station. Reyes became the voice of the revolution. In stolen broadcasts, he told the galaxy the truth. We were taken as cattle, chained, broken, forgotten. But humanity is not extinct. We are not weak. We remember Earth. We remember freedom. And now we fight. Mara became the blade of resistance, leading tactical strikes, freeing prisoners, capturing Dominion tech. She fought like a ghost, never staying in one place, always moving. The Eltari placed a bounty on her head. No one collected. Years passed. The fractured turned into the coalition of free species. As other enslaved races joined the fight, Baraxi engineers, Krell miners, even rogue Eltari sympathizers. For the first time in history, the Dominion bled. One final battle approached. The Eltari homeworld, Theraxis, floated at the heart of the Empire. A fortress world, shielded by ion storms and orbital cannons. But the Coalition had learned. They had stolen Dominion warships, cracked command codes, built alliances. Reyes led the fleet. Mara led the ground strike. They fought for 3 days. The skies burned. Space stations shattered. Cities trembled. In the final moments, Mara reached the Eltari throne node, a living AI core that ruled the Empire. She didn't try to reason. She overloaded the power grid and destroyed it. With it, the Dominion fell. The war was over. Years later, a statue stood at the rebuilt United Earth Council Plaza. It showed Mara, scarred and fierce, holding a broken shackle in one hand and a burning torch in the other. Beside her was Reyes, eyes lifted toward the stars. Beneath the statue, a plaque read, "We were prisoners. Then we became rebels. Now we are free."